So welcome to the Alternative Energy Committee meeting for the town of Cohasset. It is July 28th. We are starting this meeting at 7:32. And welcome to everybody for being here. We'll start with going around and introducing ourselves. Then we'll talk about the EV charging stations, what we should charge. And we will be joined by Scott Kaplan of Palmer Capital at around 7:50, who will give us alternative options for utilizing solar energy that could be built on Stop and Shop Plaza rooftops. So welcome everybody. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. I want to welcome Chris Odleson, our newest member, finally approved on Tuesday night by the select board. We're looking forward to hearing all about you, Chris. But my name's Tanya Bodell and I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee.
You want me to? Oh, that's me. Okay. I'm Chris Odleson, newest member. Thank you. I look forward to working with you. I've lived in town for about 20 years and look forward to getting up to speed, which is going to take me a little bit. So I'm going to look to you all for some counsel on how you got up to speed so I can be a contributing member of the group.
Welcome. I'm Pat Gooding. I'm the vice chair.
I'm Steve Wenner. I'm chair of the aggregation subcommittee.
Debbie Cook, I am the secretary.
And I also want to note that Steve is our longest member. Steve, when did you were one of the founding members of the Alternative Energy Committee,
no.
Right?
No.
No, but you've been on the committee since when?
Yeah, it seems like since the dark ages, right?
Well, no pun intended, but most certainly prior to 2010, I think. Weren't you on?
2010. Let's see. I don't think I can go back that far. Maybe 2012. I think 2012.
Okay. Well, Steve has been a great contributor, as has everybody. And Pat is the vice chair. Debbie is the secretary. We did not put on the agenda reordering of leadership, but we will do that at the next meeting. And that normally should be done annually. So we're going to do it officially now that we have our full membership. Also, for those of you who weren't listening in to the select board is contemplating restructuring our committee to have an associate member, one or two associate members, and that would allow people to be a member, vote if there's not a quorum, and allow people to come in a position to start training up to assume a full membership. Just given, Chris, as you've noticed, sometimes not everybody knows all about the energy industry or about the opportunities available. And so having somebody as an associate position can help get them up to speed. But we don't have that position now. We finally have a full committee and we're very excited to have you on board. And Michelle, you perhaps are among the most important of all.
Right, I wouldn't say that, but I'm Michelle Leary. I am the newly appointed assistant town manager.
Yay!
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Fantastic.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you.
And our town liaison.
Yes, and procurement and
And the director of procurement,
Oh,
which is very
wow.
helpful for us.
Well, that's
And what
great.
else, Michelle?
Okay.
those are the only hats.
Just a few hats. So anyway, we've got this is a very short, or it should be short, I hope it's short, meeting. Chris, just so you know, normally our meetings tend to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours. We tend to go through the same topics and just give updates on what's happening. During a normal meeting, we might have somebody present the first half hour on an item of relevance for what we're trying to do or to provide us with background information. For example, we had 2 companies present on electric school buses, and that helped us when an opportunity arose to be able to move forward with an electric school bus grant opportunity. So we are going to give an update as part of our normal meetings at the next meeting, which we'll talk about at the end. But this meeting is specifically for 2 action items that have some time constraints, and we just want to be proactive on that. Okay, so before we get into the meat of this meeting, we distributed the meeting minutes. Thank you, Debbie, again for such excellent meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were distributed. I hope everybody had a chance to review them. Chris, you won't be able to vote on those because you weren't at the meeting, but I will give everybody a moment to revisit those meeting minute notes, and then I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'm sorry, Tanya, I have not seen the meeting minutes.
Did those not get distributed with the agenda?
They may have, and I missed them.
Yeah, they were distributed. I just read them 10 minutes ago. Look good to me.
All right, Pat, do you want to take a moment?
Yep, I'm trying to find them.
Anya, while we're waiting, could I just ask about, because it's not on the agenda, what happened with Energy Sage?
So Energy Sage is not on the agenda because the action item is for town council to review the MOU.
Okay,
The select board did not take a vote on Tuesday on anything. It was more to introduce the topic to them and get some feedback on what they thought we should or should not do. With respect to Energy Sage, there was definitely a belief that the town should not endorse a third party. And when I explained that our whole notion behind Energy Sage is we are getting calls as members of the Alternative Energy Committee to provide opinions about vendors and referrals and whether or not we think somebody would be good or not good. But we did not feel comfortable making referrals or recommendations in that context. The select board agreed. And when I explained that Energy Sage could replace that, they were just a third party supported by the Department of Energy to provide unbiased information. They seemed to have some ambiguity. They liked the thought, but and they're fine with us referring people to that website, but they're not necessarily comfortable with the town putting their name and pictures and customizing a site using Energy Sage.
Tanya, at the selected meeting, you talked about how Energy Sage had customized it to town with town-specific information. What do we give up without that, with not providing the town-specific information?
So all we give up is a pretty picture in the name of Cohasset on their website.
Okay, so when they say, so town-specific stuff, they're like energy rates aren't.
They have that already.
Oh,
So
all right.
they have, and that was a picture, a screenshot that I had shown in the presentation, which was if you look up energysage.com and put in the zip code for Cohasset, or just identify Cohasset, town of Cohasset, it will provide information based on their database. And so that information is available. So I think what we don't get is a Cohasset specific looking site.
Okay,
but we
So-
also won't be able to, to have any referral off our town website either, it sounds like. Which is, pretty important in all these other towns that they've used. I frankly, I'm just curious. I'm just curious whether they've truly understood the concept. I think
Well-
if they truly understood the concept, it's really hard to find what objection they could possibly have.
Well, we have 2 more bites at the apple. So the way that we approach the select board is we tell them what we're going to tell them. And then we have another meeting to tell them. And then we have a third meeting where we may or may not attend, where they take a vote.
Okay,
So I think Debbie, you should consider, and I know you weren't available last Tuesday, but let's try to get you as the person presenting why you think it's a good idea.
Okay,
and explain to them the concept. This was just an introduction, high level. Here's what we're going to come to you with. We will need a vote on this, not tonight, but we just want you to know what we are going to ask you to look at. Okay. Okay, Pat, did you find it and have a chance to review?
Well said, yep.
Okay, so I think we have a motion from Steve to approve the meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Pat. There's a second. We'll do a roll call. Any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes from July 14th, 2022. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Steve
Pat
Winter,
Gooding,
aye.
aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Pat, will you redo that? You were on top of Steve.
Pat Gooding, aye.
Okay, perfectly. Perfect. So the meeting minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're moving on to EV charging stations. So one of the topics that we presented to the select board was the fact that the EV charging stations are now costing the town upwards of $600 a month, that the number of unique users is up to 80, that the total energy usage is increasing. And on top of that, there's a significant amount of idling happening at the charging stations. And as a result of that idling, we would like to consider having a penalty for those who are sitting there already fully charged, as well as a price to recover our costs. And they were totally in agreement on this. And so they're looking to the Alternative Energy Committee for a recommendation on the specifics. And to understand the specifics, Michelle had agreed at the last meeting that she was going to go do some additional research on what the potential pricing could be, should be, or is recommended to be. And Josh provided some data for us so we know what historically the cost has been. So I'm going to turn to you, Michelle.
So I've pulled a series of invoices from the town. I don't think the energy charges have got up as high as we think they have. The average energy bill is $293.69. We have on average 73 vehicles, unique vehicles, using these stations. In order to fully charge a vehicle, it would be 30 kilowatt hours. If we charge each person just $3.50, we would make our costs up. What we have to think about, though, is the infrastructure cost associated with these charging stations, because they don't last forever. So what I'd like to suggest is that maybe we charge $5 to fully charge a vehicle and then make the penalty swift for them not moving it. So if a vehicle is completely charged, which would be after, say, 3 hours, 4 hours, we would then charge them a penalty of $10 for each hour that they're sitting on that station idle. It'll deter people from sitting on the station. It'll have them move their vehicle. And if they're not deterred by that, then they'll pay the fee.
Michelle, a question
Yeah.
for you. By being idle, you mean that they're not drawing any current, they're not
Yeah.
a load on it? Because my car, if it were totally drained, it would take probably 7 hours to fully charge.
Okay.
And so after 3 hours, I would not be idling. I would still be pulling
So
current.
if you're still pulling a charge, then you wouldn't be charged that fee. And ChargePoint monitors all that. So
All
the
right.
second the car went idle, I think you would have, we'd have to give some leeway. I would say 30 minutes would be fair for someone to come back and move their vehicle before that fee is imposed. But these are just suggestions, so I'm looking for feedback.
Okay. I've observed that the idling cars are almost only, I think they're only the Cohasset vehicles. I noticed that they're mostly plugged in at the library or around on the other side at the playground side of the library. And I think those are the only vehicles that are left there overnight. And I've been there quite late on occasion to take note of what was going on, and that's what I've observed.
So we
These are
did test that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
When we say Cohasset, you mean town of Cohasset vehicles? Is that?
Yes,
is that-
town of Cohasset vehicles.
We have 3 electric vehicles, Chris.
Okay, thanks.
And I think I think they're parked there because aren't the charging stations at the town hall still out of order? So, you know, the town vehicles are being charged at the other town chargers at the library or at the in the town parking lot.
So Michelle, my feeling about it is I'd be curious. I think there are a lot of people who would just come in and maybe, you know, grab an hour of charging or whatever. No, you know, so a flat rate doesn't, to me, make sense. It should be incremental, I think. So, you know, like for maybe every 10 kilowatt hours would be $1.50 or something like that. Or I don't know how you want to work it, but you know, I've only used them actually twice maybe, but I would never stay for the, you know, the full time. If I go for a walk, you know, I'll grab them for 20 minutes or something. So, so it's not fair to, you know, pay a flat fee.
Right, so you bring up a good
Why
point.
wouldn't we charge? Why wouldn't you charge a kilowatt hour per kilowatt hour? Like
So we can. So each kilowatt hour provides 3 to 4 miles, the way I understand it. You're the experts, but this is just what I've seen. So if each kilowatt hour provides 3 to 4 miles per vehicle charge, does that sound correct to you?
It depends on the car and it depends on the battery in the
yeah,
car.
I think I would do it just the same way you pay for your electricity at your home. You know, you get a kilowatt hour charge, whatever you want to charge, and maybe the charge that, you know, the rate that we're getting from the landfill, for instance. What's
No,
that,
I
8 cents a
understand that.
kilowatt hour?
I'm trying to understand how long it takes for your car to charge. So if you're going to get 30 kilowatts is fully charged, right? Is that standard across all electric vehicles? Do we
No,
know?
it's a big difference depending on what kind of vehicle you have. If you have like the larger Tesla SUV, it's going to take, you know, or larger batteries, it's going to take much longer to charge and many more kilowatt hours. If you're going to have a little one, plug-in Prius or something, then it's you know, takes much less time and less energy.
So you said, Michelle, if I understand correctly, as soon as you stop charging, the clock can start on the penalty fee. And meanwhile, it just clicks up, which is how it happens in all the other charging stations you go to. It just, you know, increases as you use it. So I feel like that's what we should do, is just assign an amount for every, you know, every kilowatt hour that that they use.
So if we're
Just
gonna,
like going at a filling station and paying by the gallon, you know, you're paying by the
Right.
kilowatt hour. You don't go to a filling station and give a flat fee for filling up your car. You pay by how many gallons you put in. So
so
it'd be
our
the same
fee
idea.
per kilowatt hour is 11.7 cents. So that's our cost. That's what we're paying. So we can base it on what we're paying. We also have to understand the infrastructure costs associated with each of these stations. The latest quote we got to replace one station is upwards of $9,000. So while, yep. So they're getting, as they become more popular, right? Just like with everything, the cost of them is going up because there's more of a demand for them. So,
So it makes sense, Michelle. What you're saying is essentially, we don't want to charge cost. We want to
Right.
charge a premium over cost. And then I think where we're going in this discussion is, what do we do with those funds and how do we appropriate those into a fund that then covers ongoing infrastructure costs?
correct. So we're going to talk to Don when he's in next week about creating a revolving fund for the electric charging stations, whereas the money that goes in can strictly be used for the upkeep of the infrastructure for EVs.
So I have one question. When you say the cost is 11 cents per kilowatt hour, is that including any charge point you know, whatever piece that they take out of it. So what's the
Nope.
fully loaded cost for a charge?
So the fully loaded so that's more difficult to get at because ChargePoint doesn't charge us they have a flat fee, right?
Okay.
So when you talk about breaking it out into kilowatt hour, it becomes more complicated. Their charge is $10 no matter what for right now. When we first started this endeavor with ChargePoint, we were only paying, I believe, $2. So that increases over time.
Per what, Michelle?
Cover, what
$10
does that cover?
It's totally just a flat fee customer charge for having the charging station
Per
per
month, per port.
per port. Yep.
Per month per port.
So
Correct.
we have 18 ports, so it'd be 18 times, what did you say?
$10.
So that'd be $180 a month. They charge us for all the ports that we have in Cohasset.
Correct.
And does that include the cost of, do we pay for the charger, or do they actually pay for the charger, and this $10 per port is just a full cost?
We pay for the charger, so we paid for the installation of the charger.
Okay.
In
So
the
the-
event of these charges, Chris, just a little background, we received a grant for these charges, and the reason we weren't charging the public is part of the grant was you had to leave them free for a year's time to the
Got it.
public for public use.
Okay, so the $10 per port per month is sort of a management fee that ChargePoint charges us, and then they give all this, give us. It does it include any maintenance or anything, or is it just the informatics associated with managing things?
It's just solely a fee. All the maintenance is on us. We bought a maintenance agreement when we installed these for 3 years. And just to be frank, so the charging station that's at Town Hall was put in years prior to our new charging stations coming on. And what we're being told is the system within is obsolete and there's no point in repairing it. We must replace it.
Got it.
So is our contract with them have a cap on this flat fee, quote unquote?
I've read through the contract and I do not see a cap on it.
So if we want to figure to set up some sinking fund, we would, and these things cost $9,000. We have to sort of estimate sort of how many kilowatt hours would we get out of a life, and then to divide that into the 9,000 and just add it to the 11.4 cents. I mean, just to do something simple.
I think it's also not just the cost of the charger, it's the installation, right? So do we have a disposal fee as well that we have to consider, or does ChargePoint take these things back?
So Pat, that's a great question, and I don't have an answer to that question, but I am willing to assume there will be a disposal fee for these.
And how about a small administrative fee that Michelle, your time to sort of look after this and so on?
That comes out of your tax bill.
So can I just discuss, because I think part of figuring this out is the philosophy. You know, you can go on ChargePoint and look up any charger and see what they're charging per kilowatt hour. And, you know, it's usually, I don't know, 40 cents or something like that. I mean, you know, I don't think our point is really anymore to increase adoption of EVs with these. I think I mean, this is what I think we need to figure out. If we want to subsidize it, or we want it to be, you know, just something that's a convenience that it kind of pays for itself. And in my mind, then I think we should be talking, you know, more money, more on a comparison with, you know, with other ChargePoint facilities elsewhere.
So I think it's a catch-22, because the reason we put these in is we want people to frequent our downtown business district. So that's why we chose the places that we chose to put them. The challenge that we're having and we're seeing at Town Hall is people are upset that they're paying astronomical fees for gasoline at the present time, and people who have EVs are not being charged anything, but yet the town is still paying it with town funds. So it's a little rub there. So I think if we're going to do it, I think we have to be at least cost neutral on infrastructure, electricity, and installation with whatever fee we choose. I don't think we're looking to make money. And I think maybe the next step, and I think Chris, you brought this up, is that I should look at all the charging stations and see what phase 2 of these charging stations is. Are they the $9,000 charging stations that are next? Is there any way to project that? And I think that'll give us a better idea of what we should be charging.
And do we have a warranty on these charging stations?
It's only for 3 years.
It's only a 3-year warranty.
Because they're, what they essentially are, they're big computers, right? So just like technology, after 3 years, you don't know what you're going to get any longer.
It's so if we were to cover the costs, you know, we've got, and that's per charging station, not per port, correct?
Correct.
We have what we have 9, including the town hall,
Mm-hmm.
9 charging stations. So that's 81,000. And if you divide that by 3, that's going to be 27,000 per year. If we just do it under the 3 years. If we think it's going to be replaced every 6 years, it'd be half of that. But it's sizable, right? The capital cost, the capital replacement cost is sizable.
Maybe there's after 3 years, there's probably some useful life left that somebody's willing to take the risk on maintenance, so you'd sell them. So
That's interesting. I don't know if there's a secondary market.
because we'd replace them after 3 years because we wouldn't want to face the volatility of maintenance after the warranty's up. So we want to fix.
Right. And so, Michelle, the ones that are in the town hall, how long have we had those?
I don't remember, Tanya. That
I
was
think
definitely some-
6 years.
Yeah.
I think we had 2 3-year leases for our electric vehicles. So 6 years. So we could assume and I don't think we had big issues until now. Okay, so I guess we need to do the math. And we also can take a look at what others are charging. We could just recommend the market. I like to triangulate. So I guess the first thing is do a market survey. And Debbie, you have access to the charge point pricing?
Yeah, I mean, on my phone, I have all different stations, so I can look all around our vicinity. It depends on what kind of, you want me to look at a geographic area within like 10 miles or something, or?
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
All right.
Give us a list and what they're charging right now. But it sounds like that's 40 cents. If we did 40, we used about 5.44 megawatt hours or 5,440 kilowatt hours. So we can do the math about what that would do. And then we can also do a bottoms up approach, calculate what the total cost would be, assume 6 years based on our experience with the town hall and computers in general. I guess 6 is stretching it, but we can also perhaps look and see, Chris, if there is a lease option or if there is a resale market, a secondary market for these to see if we could decrease the potential exposure.
Or extended warranty, I suppose.
Or
Right.
to actually look into where you might, have somebody lease them and manage them, some sort of a lease arrangement, or, or we lease the land to them and let somebody else manage them. I don't know if that exists, but whether that kind of option exists, I don't know.
By the way, Tesla, when they tell you how much money you save with your electric vehicle, they're using an average price of $15 a kilowatt hour across the US.
$15 per kilowatt hour?
I'm sorry, 15 cents a kilowatt hour.
Can I just ask, does anyone know if there is another vendor that other than ChargePoint? It seems like all the towns in the area are using ChargePoint, but is there another vendor, an alternate?
Yes,
that does
Plug
this?
Share,
I'm sorry?
Plug Share and Charge Hub.
And I believe there's another Steve. Steve Girardi was on the call
Right.
last time and mentioned something that Hingham was doing. I can look back in my notes. There
Yeah,
was a
that's
different
right.
vendor. But yeah,
So-
there's not.
Yeah,
We
so it
don't-
might be worth looking at, to Debbie's point, whether or not a different arrangement is an option, particularly for the ones that aren't working. If you're going to replace them, could we replace them with a lease arrangement where, or a different warranty or something like that? But I mean, that doesn't answer the question at hand, but
I'm not sure. I think like ChargePoint is just simply a service company. I think can't ChargePoint operate with any charger? Or it's not like the charger is a ChargePoint charger. It's just a ChargePoint is the company that is managing the charger, and you could have another company can manage the same charger. I think, but I'm not positive about that.
I don't know about that. So
No.
I think you would know. So when you go charge your vehicle and you use your ChargePoint app, right? Your
Yeah,
ChargePoint
right.
key tag. Have you ever pulled up to a different charger and were able to use
Oh,
your
sure.
ChargePoint?
Yeah,
Well,
but then
yeah,
you use somebody else. We've got different apps for different ones. But what
Right.
I did find most of the ChargePoint ones, I went to one on the Cape and it was out of service. And that's when I thought ChargePoint actually owned and operated them, especially the private ones. And I found out they're owned by other, private entities. And I guess ChargePoint just manages them.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, which really changed the equation. So I found sometimes they haven't operated, and that's a problem, actually.
Well, that's the same situation we're in. We own the station. They operate
They
the
manage the
use of it, I
software
guess,
that
right?
it allows you to communicate with it via the internet and to do the accounting. It's a service they provide.
So is there someone that wants to work with me offline on this and we can see if we can pull all the relevant data that we need and come back to the next meeting with a recommendation on price?
Well, hasn't Debbie already volunteered to do that?
No,
Well, I
Debbie-
was gonna
Debbie's-
just do I mean, Frank, this is a very hard time of year for me. And
I
we're
think
gonna be away.
I think Pat was interested in working. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Pat, but I think you were the one that was interested in working on this.
well, I did go out and look at the other towns and what they were doing. Unfortunately, I don't have an EV, so I can't bring the background, of looking at the other alternatives, but I'm happy to help. I mean,
Well,
can we do it
Debbie, if
for,
you-
we're
if
gonna
you
do
don't
it
have
for
time to-
September, right? We're talking about September timeframe. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah, I
happy to
could-
help you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
I'd volunteer to look into it for the September meeting if Debbie and Pat don't feel like they want to do it.
Well, maybe the four of us can, I think we can divvy up some of the work.
Yeah, but
If
could
I
I
think-
suggest the following, because I think there is a divvying up already. So Debbie can put together a list of all of the charge point prices that the market's charging in the 10-mile radius, right? So Debbie can take control of that. That's one angle. What is the market charging? What are the competitors charging? Pat, if you could work with Michelle to pull together all of the numbers, including what the capital cost replacement charge would have to be, the energy price replacement, and plus a penalty and what we think we'd collect, what we'd have to charge to be able to collect all of that so that we could replace all 18 of the, or all 9 of the charging stations within 5 years. Right. So I think we're close to having those numbers right now. So we can estimate how many idling charges we're going to get, or even just assume 0 and make a charge that's equal to the electricity price plus a capital cost charge.
And maybe Steve or somebody can look in to see if there's any other arrangements that are out.
Yeah, let me, I'm kind of curious now to find out if I was correct about ChargePoint. So let me see what the alternative possibilities are for the data management services that ChargePoint gives us. And if they can operate with any charger, or if it has to be, there's something specific about each company's, a charger can only work with a particular data provider.
That'd be helpful, Steve. And then also working with Michelle to see what the potential replacement options are for the town hall chargers.
Okay. I think I ought to talk to Steve Girardi too, since he knows what Hingham's doing.
That'd be helpful too. So that's great. So I think those are 3 ways to triangulate on what we should be recommending. And Michelle, if you could coordinate with the volunteers of this committee to pull everything together, and then at our next meeting in September, we'll have a recommendation and we'll take that to the select board and ask them for approval for the charging fees that we'd like to charge to recover the cost and explain why.
Perfect.
So we might, one of the variables is our demand assumption. Because we're going to have fixed costs, we're going to have to allocate over who knows what demand. So, we might, Michelle, I guess sort of what the demand has been so far. And do you want to think about that this is a constant going forward? That might be the conservative assumption.
Yeah.
And then the other, thing that nobody has a crystal ball on, but, I think eventually there's going to be a lot of competition as they build, the supercharger system, and people may not even want to come to the, level 2 ones. So, so that, and I mean, it sounds like they're going to be building quite a robust supercharger system, and Tesla's also going to open it up to all vehicles, apparently, its system, which it's doing in Europe right now. So that's kind of another wrinkle in it too, is this industry's changing quickly, and we may be obsolete.
That's
So you
a very
bring up a
interesting
really
point.
good point. And maybe when we look at future costs, we don't look at the cost to put the same level 2 charging. Maybe we roll with the times and increase the stations that we put in. And maybe we can't increase all of the stations. Maybe we start, retrofitting 2 every year until we can get to the next level. So they're on a rolling change. So just like computers, right? Everyone's going to slowly integrate into something new. We could do the same with the chargers. It's a blessing and a curse being on the forefront, right?
Right. I think this is very helpful. And I think this is a useful discussion. And I think this group knows where to go. So let's, Josh has access to the data. Michelle, if you could just work with him offline, otherwise you'll have a quorum. If all 4 of you meet, you can't meet with 4 of our members, or you'll have a quorum and it'd be a violation of the open meeting laws. But if you can ask Josh to pull together whatever information you need about the past, I think, Chris, you're right. We could look at trends, or we could take a conservative assumption that it stays fixed. The challenge is once we start charging, it may not be as possible, it might not be as, we might have a demand response down. So
if we start charging, definitely you'll see a lesser amount of
2 of the members of this committee can vouch for that directly. So I think let's, we've got our group who's going to go figure that out, and we'll discuss that. And the goal would be to have a recommendation for the board in September with all
Chris,
of the
if you-
support and justification. Okay.
Sure. Yep. And Chris, if you have any ideas, just send me an email and we'll be able to incorporate them.
Great. Michelle, I'd be happy to sort of talk to you about sort of the pulling it all together analysis
Okay.
and graphical representation, that sort of thing.
I love your help.
Yeah. Yeah, great. You have my contact info. You just
I
give me,
do.
give me a shout when you're ready.
Great. Thank you so much.
Excellent. And then we have as an action item, the town council to look at the different options that we could use for a special revenue fund.
So that is in town council's hands. We did get an update from them yesterday, saying they need till mid next week to review it.
Okay, and so I think let's also talk about that at the September meeting as well. We have given the select board a heads up that we'll be making a recommendation on the proper way to match the revenues to the expenses, what kind of fund to set up. They did not seem as hot and heavy about that. I think they might not. I don't know what's entailed, but they seem to think we'd have to take it to town meeting if we wanted to set up a special revenue fund. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, then let's plan on having a recommendation and perhaps presenting it to the town meeting in December. If the select board wants to take that on. I think they're more interested in making sure we start charging for things at these charging stations, and they're less interested in the reserve fund, but recognize that it's something that we need to be thinking about and we should consider over time. Okay. All right, great. Is Scott in the waiting room?
He is.
Okay, he could have been a part of this. I mean, I guess hi,
He can-
Scott. Hopefully he's
hear us.
listening in.
I figured he would raise his hand if he wanted to take part.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for volunteering to get to the bottom of this. And thank you to everybody for your comments. Scott. Welcome to the Alternative
I'm
Energy
muted.
Committee.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, great.
Hi, Scott.
So Scott Kaplan's with Palmer Capital. Palmer Capital was responsible for helping the town to get our one solar energy array at the old landfill up and running. And we've saved around $300,000 to date in our electricity costs, thanks to Palmer Capital and that solar energy array. We are trying to get more solar in town to cover and reduce the cost of electricity for the town's usage. And we're trying to do that sooner rather than later because some of the federal subsidies are going to ratchet down by the end of the year. So we want to try to be timely. We want to try to push this forward. As you know, during the RFP, we asked developers to present third-party sites that could host solar energy that the town could purchase. And Palmer came in with a number of potential locations. They've been working very closely with Don Stasko at the Stop and Shop Plaza, and specifically the new building as well as the old building, about whether or not we could put solar on their sites. The nice thing about that is the town would get savings, and Scott's here to talk to us about how this works and what the proposed options are. And at the same time, that the town was able to get savings, we would also have solar energy on a potential microgrid if our microgrid goes forward. So the location of the Stop and Shop Plaza is perfect for what the town has proposed to FEMA, but it is also perfect even if the microgrid doesn't go forward, because we would still be able to get savings against the town's electricity usage. So Scott, welcome. Thank you for
Okay.
all the work you do for this town and
You're most
working with us
welcome.
on this, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's always great to check in with the AEC. I have a little presentation, a PowerPoint. Can I share my screen? Can you see it? Hold on.
I think Michelle was going to give you access.
Yeah, Scott, can
Okay.
you try it again?
Oh, yeah, here we go. How's that?
Yes, perfect.
So as Tanya introduced me, I'm going to introduce tonight a couple of solar projects that are in Cohasset at the Plaza Stop and Shop of the new mixed use building, and how those can save the town money on their electric bills. So here's basically what I'm going to run through. I'll give you a little brief introduction on Palmer. Some of you know us, some of you might have heard of us, some of you might not have heard of us, but we are located in Cohasset. Our office is right above on the second floor of the Hingham Institution for Savings building in the village. We've been in the renewable energy business for almost 40 years. 3 of the 5 of us in the office actually live in the town. So we always have a vested interest, we feel, with doing what's good for the town. And I think emblematic of that is the landfill solar project, which we developed back in 2017. And it's almost been 5 years since it started operations. And like Tanya said, I think it's close to 300,000 we've saved thus far over 5 years. So it's been doing pretty well. And you'll notice a couple of this within the slide, some of the pictures of I have of the development of the solar field 5 years ago. So the other topics I'll cover, I'll go into little detail about the solar projects themselves, you know, how far we are in the development of the projects. And then we're going to get into the more relevant matter, which is bill credits, which is what's going to save the town some money. And then we'll get into some pricing options, and I'll give you an example of what the net benefits for the town might be, and then we can answer some questions. So, as Tanya mentioned, the 2 systems are at the plaza. One is at the Stop and Shop, on top of the Stop and Shop roof, and that's the picture to the right shows our initial design, and that's roughly 340 kilowatts. It's a preliminary design. At the mixed use building, it's roughly 180 kilowatts. So together they make up basically the same amount of kilowatts as what's at the landfill. And we'll get into the bill credits, but we're offering 100% of any bill credits that are generated from these projects, and they will be able to generate bill credits for the next 20 years. So here's where we stand with development so far. We've executed, it's really rooftop site leases with Donald Stasco, and just so the building the picture to the right is the 400 building, a preliminary design. We've also, we're on the verge of signing what's called a limited notice to proceed with our installer. And the reason it's limited, we're just having them do interconnection work and some structural engineering analysis. And we haven't signed a full EPC agreement yet, just because of the pricing. It's so off the wall right now with the price of steel. And even he basically told us, let's wait a few months to sign the full EPC. But again, as Tanya mentioned, we'd like to start construction before year end so that we're locked into the federal ITC, which is currently 26%. Although I don't know if you're aware of it yet, but a bill, Senate bill just came out that Manchin agreed to with Schumer, and I think they're going to keep it at 26% for the next 10 years. So that's good for the, very good for the industry. So as far as the bill credits are concerned, the bill credits are qualified by us being eligible for the SMART program, which is the Massachusetts State Incentive Program. So the 400 building, or the Stop and Shop building, we're already in the queue for in SMART, which is great, which means we're locked in to a specific incentive. And we actually got that, and it was just like a letter that the town wrote to us saying, yeah, we're interested in this project. There's no obligation for us to actually proceed with it, but it actually gets us ahead in line in the SMART program. Unfortunately, and it's really on me, we didn't do it for the 390 building, and we've had conversations with Tanya and Michelle before, that if it would really be helpful, the sooner rather than later, to get another one of these letters. And I think I sent a draft one a while, or maybe a few weeks ago, so that we could get into the SMART incentive, so we can get into the SMART program and lock in the incentive. And it actually is in both our interests to do that, because if we can lock in the incentive, then I can kind of guarantee that our pricing proposal can move forward. And we'll get into a little bit later in the presentation of what exactly that proposal is. But that's why I have this in red. We really would love to get that letter and get us locked in, because then if we're locked in, then we can lock you in. And finally, I think right before I was on vacation last couple of weeks, we sent and it says AOBC, that it's smart program parlance for the bill credits. It stands for alternative on bill credits. It's essentially the bill credits, and we sent Tanya draft agreements, and they're pretty cut and dry, because this is basically a monetization transaction between us, right? It's not as complicated as the landfill, where we had a site lease and we had to go through the planning board and we had to go through Mass DEP to get permitted. This is, on top of a rooftop. It's not as dramatic, and between the town and Palmer, it's really just a matter of monetizing these bill credits.
Can I just jump in? So we had both of those, the letter of intent and the council's review of the AOBC agreement, as next steps, and the select board agreed that town council should review and we should move forward. So Michelle, do you know what the status is of the letter of intent and the review of the AOBC contract?
So I think what's slowing things down, to be completely honest, is we sent everything in one package to the attorneys. And I believe we're going to get everything back midweek next week.
Okay, and the letter of intent, we've already signed that for 400. Can't we just sign that for 390?
I don't believe so. I think it still has to go through legal review, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, can you just stay on them, because we've been trying to get this done for a couple of months.
Mhm.
And we do run the risk that we don't get the more valuable state credits if we delay.
They will.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
because it just, to further explain, it's in blocks, the SMART program. So these blocks fill up, and as the blocks fill up, the incentives go down. So right now, I think we're in block 9 for the Stop and Shop building, but I think they're in block 10 right now. Can we get into block 10 would be great. So, okay. Can I continue?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I think
Sure.
I know what a bill credit value is. I'm a member of a solar farm, so I think it's the credit we get on our bill, and then we would pay Palmer a discounted rate to that. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm actually, the next few slides, I'll walk you through that.
Okay,
But
great, thanks.
you're correct. So picking up with that, so the bill credit value is whatever we produce, which is these kilowatt hours, and multiply that times this basic supply rate. And the basic supply rate, and you'll see it on your residential bill, but this is for a commercial facility. So we get what's called the G1 rate, and the G1 rate currently is this 10.37 cents. So and it runs every 6 months, it changes. We don't know what it's gonna be every 6 months, right? So there's usually like a summer rate and a winter rate. The winter rate's usually higher. Right now, it's 10.37%, 7 cents. So the bill credits can be transferred to other national grid accounts. So when the facilities are up and operating, they're going to have a meter, and then that meter is going to determine how many kilowatt hours there are, and then whatever accounts we tell National Grid to transfer them to, for example, the town, and there can be any number of accounts that the town can allocate, the value of the bill credits. That's going to have to be something that you guys are going to have to look at. I'm more than willing to help you out. And I did it to a degree with when we did the landfill project, because the landfill project kind of does the same thing. I can't remember the exact accounts, but some of it went to the school. Maybe some went to police and fire, some went to town hall. So again, we're gonna have to go through that same exercise, and you're gonna have to determine where to exactly allocate the credits. So here's the pricing proposal. I think this is what Chris was alluding to. So we proposed, we're gonna give whatever the bill credit value is, we're gonna give you a 12.5% discount, give the town that percent discount. So in other words, if it's 10 cents, then the town's gonna pay us 8.75 cents. And you're gonna basically get savings from the difference. Because of the discount, there's really no price risk. And I remember I said the basic supply rate is gonna go up, it's gonna go down depending on time of year and who knows what else, their fuel mix, right? And what else is going on in the world. There's no price risk, whether it's high or whether it's low. No price risk to the town. There's also no production risk to the town. In other words, if the project, let's say the project for some reason is down, or one of the projects is down, and it doesn't generate any power, then the town doesn't pay anything for it. So it's essentially a pay-as-you-go method, right? I mean, I have here no payment up front. I mean, if you want to look at a payment up front, I would think it'd be way too complicated. We'd have to discount it, and it's probably not something that most towns would be willing to take the risk for. But
And why would we do a payment up front? So we would get a better discount going in the future?
yeah, I mean, I don't think you would. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think you would. I don't think most towns would take that risk. I mean, we've dealt with.
What risk are they taking if they pay up front?
Well, I mean, what if you pay us up front and then the systems don't work as projected?
Are you saying we pay up front? I mean, what would we pay for? Would be expected production?
Right. So we'd make some sort of, like, for example, and I just went to the example. Let's assume we did some projections and it's going to be $10,000. You were going to net $10,000 per year for 20 years. So that's $200,000, right? So what if you pay us $100,000 up front? But let's assume you do that, and then going forward, let's assume the systems don't work and you're getting $1,000 per year. I wouldn't think the town would want to do that.
I mean, that's the risk. What's the upside for doing
But
that?
let me just jump in, because there are instances where you could. So Scott, first of all, you would give us a guarantee, right, on the output, like you did with the landfill?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We could do that. Yeah.
Okay, so we could mitigate all of these risks. We could get a mitigation about the operations, but Chris, I think that the only reason the town would pay something up front is if it's through a grant. Like if we were able to get a grant where the town was able to, and we looked at this for the Cohasset microgrid brick grant. If we included the solar costs into the bid, we could get a certain amount of funding to help pay for the solar energy arrays, like even 75% of it. And then the town would have to match with 25. We could have Palmer do the match of the 25, and we just pay Palmer a price that recovers what they put up, which is effectively what we're doing now, right? Palmer is the developer. They're putting together all of the costs. They're financing the upfront investment. They are a third party that has tax appetite, so they can take advantage of the tax credits and the incentives that are in place, both from the federal government primarily and other programs that allow them to be able to get revenue streams. And they pull all those revenue streams together and they say, okay, well, here's what we need to be paid by you to make the whole package complete. And then in exchange, we'll give you the credit. So that's the whole transaction. The tax benefits, the town can't get the tax benefits by paying for and owning the solar ourselves. So we need a third party to do that. And I think the only way we would do a payment up front is if we were getting grant funding, either as a match or just upfront grant.
So the idea of paying up front is comparable to what I paid for my solar system here, because I wanted to reap all the economic benefits and not share it with a third party. So that would be a motivation for paying for some of it.
That would be, or you could think about it as paying points on a loan so that you have a lower
Right.
effective interest rate over time.
I think and Michelle, if she's on, I think, and Chris, you're on the advisory committee, right? Or
No.
well, on the advisory committee, the town isn't allowed to prepay for things. It can only pay for things after the fact. So
Mhm.
that is, I think, a municipal statute.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we would be allowed to purchase capital stuff if we wanted to purchase the array ourselves. But since we don't have the tax appetite, it's sort of moot. It's sort of moot. Right? I think that's well, unless we had a grant, we should just use that to actually get a lower rate or something, bigger
Yeah,
discount.
the key thing about going with the developer is the tax appetite at this point.
Right.
26% of the cost is offset upfront by the investment tax credit at the federal level.
Yeah, and
Plus
there's
it's
also
complicated.
bonus depreciation that, the town can't use. I mean, I think I might have led you down the wrong path here. This is really just no upfront payment. Again, I'm just talking about bill credits. I'm not talking about purchasing the facility itself. Palmer plans on owning the facility.
And in the power purchase agreement with the landfill, I think there's an option for the town to buy at the end of the term, but I don't think there's a set price. I think it's at a negotiated price or fair market value price or something like this. In this instance, because it's on a third party site, would we have that option, or is that not in the contract currently?
Yeah, we don't have it in the contract. I mean, I think we did it at the landfill, considering that it's, a town site. We might have to do something like that with the building owner eventually. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I think from the town's perspective, simply having solar in town is helpful. We don't yet know how we can use it fully, but having the discount
Can I
is
ask one
useful to the
question?
town. Yes, Debbie.
Does this project go with the property or the owner? If Stasco decides to bail, does it end or what?
You mean, when you say bail, you mean if he sells the building?
Yeah,
It would continue with the next owner of the building.
okay.
Good question.
When you say, Scott, can you Palmer, Donald could sell the buildings to a new owner, and you would retain ownership of the solar arrays.
Correct. We own the solar arrays. We own the facilities.
So Donald
And-
doesn't have the right to
And
sell.
the lease that we have with him would have to be assigned to the new building owner if he sold them.
So the lease is transferable and required to be assigned.
Correct.
And Scott, how, well, to get to 12.5%, what sort of return on capital is Palmer targeting to solving for it? So,
Well, it's a good question, because one of the issues we're having right now, as I mentioned up front, is the costs are all over the place, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to, I really can't get into, tell you what return we're looking for, but with 12.5%, it might be okay, or it might, depending on where this ends up, it might not be so great. And I'll give you an example at the landfill. So we weren't the initial develop. So there was an RFP for it. We actually did not win the RFP. There was a company called Broadway Electric that won it, and they went belly up. And I purposely kept our bid deposit with the town. And basically the town said, if you can keep we were next in line, if you can keep your bid proposal, and this was, I think they were negotiating with them for a year. If you can keep the same terms as what was in your proposal, we'll select you. Well, the problem was, if there was, before SMART, there was something called SREC 2, and before that, there was something called SREC 1. And each successor program, the incentives get less and less. So when we bid on the project, we were in SREC 1. When the town gave us the okay to award us the project, we were in SREC 2 already, but we kept SREC 1 pricing because it was the town. So, I think the 12.5%, and you can ask around. I think it's a little bit better than market for a municipality. If we can do better for the town, I'll let you know because of costs. If it doesn't look so great, I'll try and keep it at the 12.5%, because, as I said, we do, we live and work in the town. We're taxpayers in the town. We want to do what's best for the town as well. This is not our core business. We're actually doing utility scale projects, utility scale solar and wind projects in New York State, in New Mexico, in Virginia, and maybe Puerto Rico. So we're not doing a lot in New England these days. We were doing some wind up in New England. So, these are more of our way of giving back to the community. We've done well over the years, and we want to make sure that we give, the town of Cohasset a fair deal and a good deal. And I think 12.5% is a very good deal.
point of comparison, I get only 10% from my community farm.
Okay, there you go.
That's one data point.
Yeah.
I'll give you another. We have another proposal for a different building in town, and it's same thing, 10%. So I think Palmer is a known entity who has done right by the town with the landfill. And from the data points that we've seen, as you said, Scott, it's fair, but good. It's a fair deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
And right now the town, and it drives me crazy because I've been trying to get solar on the school roofs for 10 years.
Yeah.
The roof replacement keeps getting pushed off. So we may still be able to do it if the ITC is extended for 10 years. So I'll be working on it for another 10 years.
Yeah.
And my obituary will say she finally put solar on the school roofs. But if we do that, and the school roofs are the most lucrative way for us to go because it offsets the price that the school pays in its entirety. So it is most beneficial. There are small sites in town that have no savings because it's just costly. So this is better than some of the small town roofs. It's not as good as putting it on the school roofs, but the town has appetite for these credits. Right now, we're only getting 500 kW of credits. And, you know, we have appetite for the town usage, that's more than 3 times that.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and
maybe-
if we start to get better opportunities, we can always push these to the enterprise funds. First
Okay.
to the water, which is servicing most of the town,
Well-
and then to the wastewater treatment plant, which is a subset of town. So there's
Right, so-
more room to go.
Yeah, and you can change the allocation 2 times a year. And I mean, the interesting thing with the school roofs are, you know, so the SMART program, it's gonna fill up, right? And by the time the school gets its roofs, what incentive program is gonna exist then, right? Who knows? So, and the good thing about these projects are the roofs are brand new. So obviously the Cohasset place is a new building. And he just redid the roof on Stop and Shop. So these are solar ready. We still, like I said, we still have to do structural engineering just to, you know, to confirm it'll hold the weight of the panels and the racking. But, you know, these are perfect examples of roofs that you want to put solar on. Okay, can continue. So I
Can I,
quickly-
sorry,
yeah.
Scott, following up on that, why didn't Stasco want to put the solar on for his own purposes? Was there an inverter cost or some type of interconnection cost that was going to be prohibitive?
For his, you mean for going behind the meter?
Correct.
So so Stop and Shop, we actually approached them for a behind the meter solution, and we actually spoke with and we had a great meeting with their energy director of, I think it's Ahold, and he was very positive about it. I sent him 2 proposals, a couple of phone calls, never really got back to me on it. So, you know, I think they were just, it's bureaucratic. So it would have made great sense to them. I mean, the good thing as far as developing solar projects under the SMART program, even if you didn't want the bill credits, we could actually, you know, first of all, there's a number of entities out there that would purchase the bill credits. But even if we didn't go that route, we could become what's called a qualifying facility and just put power out onto the grid, and we'd still get an incentive that way. It's not as good as incentive as selling it to the town, but it's still okay. So, you know, we, as a developer, it's good that we had options. Unfortunately, I mean, it would have made, I don't understand why Stop and Shop wouldn't do it, but, you know, I don't know what, you know, what their goals are, or maybe, you know, he's busy with other things. I just don't know. Cohasset Place, I don't think it has enough load. And we really didn't explore that with them. And so I think part of the problem too, from what I remember, is a number of different meters, and we'd have to, you know, each of the individual, I think, you know, residences in there, and then the commercial properties, I think they would have to sign up for it. So again, it wasn't really a priority for us. This is actually dealing with one off-taker like the town, and we get a little bit of a bump selling it to municipalities. It actually makes more sense. I'm actually, in some ways, I'm relieved Stop and Shop didn't sign off on it. I think it would have been more lucrative for us, but at the same time, it might have been more bureaucratic.
Which is so ironic, but
Yes,
that's good.
very.
Good for
Yeah,
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, exactly. Good for you, right? So their loss is your gain. So, all right. So this is a quick example, and it's example. I'm not projecting anything. It's ironic. The kilowatt hours are almost exactly the same, and I remember it because it was 667,000 kilowatt hours per year. And like I said, it's about the same size as the landfill. So just to move this along a little bit, so that translates in almost 70,000 in credits. With the discount, you would net like $8,600 a year, or you would see savings on your electric bill. okay, it's not, that's not mind blowing, but over 20 years, it helps, right? All right, so the other thing we discussed, and I have kind of mixed feelings about, more negative than positive. So we were asked about a fixed price rather than just doing a discount. So I did some analysis and just, what we would expect out of it. Let's assume we're not escalating the rate. I would think it would be in roughly 11 cents. And again, it's a little hard for me to judge without knowing the EPC cost, because that's a main driver on how much we should be charging for things, but be that as it may. So let's assume 11 cents. And right now I said the bill credit's 10 cents. So there's price risk with a fixed payment. So if bill credits are high, and I looked over the historic numbers for the G1 rate, and back in 2015 in the winter it was 15 cents. The town's going to make more of a profit. In other words, it's going to be more than that 12.5 cents. If the bill credits are low, and I look back in summer of 2012, it's only 6 cents, then instead of profit, you're going to have a loss. So, based on this analysis over time, you would be the same. But who knows where this, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't really follow, how NGrid determines its, basic supply rates. I'm sure it's, what their fuel mix is, but, I don't have my pulse on it. So I'm much more comfortable at giving you or giving the town a discounted rate rather than going with a fixed price. And then, if things, go upside down and the town's not happy, then, nobody's happy. So I would suggest or highly recommend that we follow through with a discounted price. If you're hell bent on getting a fixed price, we'll obviously look into that in finer detail, but.
So Scott, when is the book in this example, is the bill credit number 15 cents and 6 cents sort of a proxy for what the town would pay if they got their kilowatt hours from the utility? So
the town has a number of different electric accounts, and they're on a number of different rates. So, our rate will be the G1 rate. And I was looking at the historic G1 rates. So if I gave you a fixed price of 11 cents, and that's my best projection right now based on certain assumptions, I'm just telling you, these rates are going to go up and they're going to go down every 6 months. As a high, and this, I think it went back to 2010. I'd have to look. I saw 15 cents in the winter of 2015. So if it's high and so it's 15 cents, you're only paying 11 cents, you make out pretty well, right? If you're paying 11 cents and let's say, a lot of natural gas, comes online, it's reducing they're fracking like crazy out in the Midwest or the South, and prices go low, then it's only the bill credit's only 6 cents, but I'm charging you 11 cents, then you're not going to be too happy. Well, so, maybe this is going to balance out over time. I don't know. I mean, one of the good things that I saw, and I think it was your presentation to the select board, I think you actually had graphs showing this. So I saw that, I'm like, oh, good, they get it. And I don't know, what are your feelings about going with this discounted kind of guaranteed, rate versus, are you gonna, bet on things a little bit, and it's a little more speculative. It might be a little bit more volatile. I would assume with a municipality, you want to stay the guaranteed rate. You might not make a killing, but you're going to make something, right?
So it depends. When we made this decision before with the landfill, we were looking at how much headroom there was. So we knew that we knew, well, in the town, with the G3 rate of the landfill, I think it's a G3 rate, we're making hand over fist money, right? We're making like more than five times what the credits would be, net credits would be here. But what we looked at the time, we knew that there were towns that had entered into solar contracts for 16 cents. And in 2015, when they were getting around 15 cents, it was underwater. When
Yeah.
it went down to 6 cents, it was just a nightmare. So, there wasn't a lot of hullabaloo because I don't think most of the towns have anybody tracking that,
Yeah.
but they were not making money. With the landfill, the price that you came in at was far enough below the credit at the time
Yeah.
that we felt comfortable. When I say we, I mean the evaluation committee that was advising the town felt comfortable enough going with a fixed price that we could get the upside.
Yeah.
And
You're-
currently, it's not as rich, right? It's not as rich. And,
Yeah.
and if we were to go behind the meter at the schools, we would be getting the distribution plus the transmission plus the
Right.
supply rate.
Right.
Here, because it's in front of the meter and
Yeah.
the way they're calculating it, it's just not as rich. And then
Right,
that's
it's
on
just-
purpose.
Right, it's just basic supply. So with the landfill, you get supply and, as you said, transmission, distribution, and transition. So it's a lot richer, the 8.8 cents flat. That's a great deal, right? So, I'd be shocked if it ever even got close to that. And it's been like, I think at a low, maybe 17, but it's always in the 20 range, right?
Right, because at the time, the way the credit was calculated, the net metering credit was calculated when we entered into that first contract,
Yeah.
the municipalities did receive a credit for the transmission, for the distribution, and for the supply.
Yeah.
So not only were we already in the money, but we were in the money by a lot.
Yeah,
The thought was the transmission and distribution is going to just keep going up. And that's not as volatile as the supply. So those are the things that we were thinking about. So there are conditions, I will say this, that's an example, that's anecdotal, but there are conditions when we would consider a fixed price. The situation here would not rise to most of those conditions. And in the discussion with the town Tuesday, it was pretty clear most of the members of the select board wanted to just lock in a fixed savings off of the credit because they thought it was gambling with the town's money if we didn't do that. Again, sometimes you can gamble and you know what the risks are and it's a good bet.
Yeah.
There's still risk, but you can mitigate it. In this case, it's not as rich and we don't get the credit for transmission and distribution, which are more than likely going to keep going up.
Yep.
So those are the conditions. That's a difference with this situation. It's not as rich. We do get savings. I think on a total basis, it's going to end up being 5% of the all-in cost of whatever accounts we're allocating it to. So, it's not a huge savings, but it's a savings. And it
It's a
puts
savings.
solar on the Stop and Shop Plaza,
Yep.
which is located on a potential microgrid. We won't
Yep.
know if we even get to the next level. So there's just a lot of reasons to do it. And frankly, we have the appetite. We have tons of potential credit appetite and not a lot of roofs in town.
No, well put. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, and you stated very well. Yeah, I agree with you.
So Tanya, there's something maybe we can take, maybe we can take offline because there's something fundamental I don't think I'm understanding. If I'm the town buying from the utility that includes supply and distribution expense, and instead I buy from Palmer at and that's usually in the 20s cents range, and I compare to buying from Palmer at 11 cents, and do I still have to pay the utility the supply and distribution charge above and beyond 11 cents I'm paying Palmer?
Yeah, so the way this deal is structured, and it's just the way that the state has structured the net metering credit, which is no longer called a net metering credit, but it basically is a net metering credit program. The way this deal is structured is Palmer gives us the right to the payment from National Grid for the solar that's produced. So what we get as a credit on our bill is the price that National Grid is paying for solar.
Mhm.
And because this is put on a commercial property, the price that National Grid is paying for the solar is equal to their commercial rate, the G1
Mhm.
rate. For
which is the-
supply,
the
no
supply rate.
distribution, no transmission, no avoided cost, just for the supply.
Uh-huh,
And so in this deal, Palmer says, hey, I've got this credit, but I need a bill to put it against. The town says, I have a bill. I'll take the credit. And what price do you want? So what Palmer has said is we'll give you 100% of the credit and you give us 87.5% of the cost.
right. All right. So on my solar array at my house, I mean,
Or 85.75 or 80,
Yeah.
something like that.
87.5.
all right. Well, I can ask you some more questions offline, Tanya, rather than, I'm the newbie, Scott, brand new. So I got a lot of questions. I don't want to clog things up.
Yeah, Chris, we can talk about this offline just to
Yeah.
bring you up to
Yeah.
speed on the way this is set up. But
Yeah.
because it's a third-party site, we cannot apply the solar to offset the town's usage, which means we can't offset the distribution and transmission charges. Because it's not, if it were on our rooftops and we had a battery and we could just take that solar and inject it directly into the schools, for example, we could avoid the supply plus the distribution plus the transmission costs.
Right.
But but not the unavoidable cost. So there'd
Yeah.
still be some part of the bill that the schools would still have to pay, but it would be much more lucrative if we could put solar on the roofs and just inject it directly behind the meter into the schools.
Got it.
This arrangement, we can't do that. There's no physical supply. So what Palmer is proposing is a pure financial transaction.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's basically, we're monetizing bill credits. We generate bill credits, we'll put them on your account, you pay us for the bill credits. But you get a you at a discount, so you get a savings. It's kind of a no-brainer.
It's like buying a $100 gift card for $87.
And you can use, you want to use the gift card, it's money.
Yeah, you need to use the gift card. The town has a bill that can use that gift card. When we run out of, and we have a lot of bill that we can apply it to, because we can just keep using credits to offset the supply, to offset the distribution, to offset the transmission. But the price that we're paying for it depends on the arrangement. All right, are there other questions? How do people on this committee feel about the guaranteed savings versus a fixed price?
Anya, you might have already covered this, or Scott, I'm sorry to take you back, but what's the, what is the arrangement with the town such that if they, for example, if we had other solar options that were more lucrative, will we be required to continue to offtake via this arrangement, basically? I mean,
Yep.
we're nowhere near that at this point, but how long does this continue? How many years are we talking about? And, so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 20-year contract. I haven't looked at what we sent you in a while. Let's put it this way. I mean, if the town really didn't want the credits anymore and we could find another buyer, I don't think we would hold your feet to the fire. I don't think we're ever going to get there though, unless, some of these other projects, or you get other projects, people are offering you bill credits from other projects in in-grid territory. You need a lot of projects.
Yeah,
I agree. I
don't think we're gonna get there.
understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Pat, so I had mentioned this, but this is a great question to put it in context again. So the town, understanding how much appetite the town has, we have about 2 megawatts worth of appetite for town usage. Right now, we have around a quarter of that from the old landfill. And then this would be able to give us half half of our potential appetite, our potential bills could be covered by this supply or this credit. If it turns out we had more lucrative opportunities, say Mansion agrees and we get the ITC at 26% extended for another 10 years, and the roofs finally get replaced on the schools, and the school committee is comfortable putting solar energy arrays on the school roofs, which is the most lucrative opportunity we have currently, if the roofs were available, we could then take these credits, the less lucrative credits, and we could allocate them to the water plant electricity
That's right.
usage. And that's because the water plant services almost everybody in town. And then if we had even more, so that more lucrative opportunities were coming, we'd first give it to the town who services everybody in town. We'd then give it to the water plant who services most of the people in town. And if we still had opportunities and these were the least lucrative ones, we would then give it to the wastewater treatment plant because it's still a guaranteed savings. So we haven't officially talked to the select board about this, but I've talked to members of the select board about it, and they're very cognizant of the fact that these are town resources and we want to make sure that everybody in town benefits from them first. And to the extent we get better deals, we have more than enough opportunity to keep pushing them down to other parts of the town through the enterprise funds.
Totally makes sense. Thank you.
Tanya, I have a question for Scott. I'm a little bit hesitant to ask because it's somewhat off topic. Scott, could you explain the problem at the landfill that prevents Palmer from simply expanding the solar array at the landfill?
Yeah, so the issue, and it's still an issue, is there's some what are called power quality issues. So and we've engaged National Grid to a degree to look at the problem. So when I say power quality issues, it means essentially our inverters keep breaking and we have to keep replacing them. And right now it's more a matter of people pointing fingers at one another. So I think what we're gonna have, so to answer your question, we'd love to expand it, but the issue is if we have problems there. I mean, we're spending an awful lot of money right now on replacing inverters and truck rolls. And when I say a truck roll, that means people coming out to replace them. And, you know, some are under warranty and some aren't. So we really, you know, as I mentioned before, I'm busy on a number of other projects, but I've spoken with the inverter manufacturer. I've spoken with N-Grid. We have an open ticket with N-Grid about the issue. I think we're almost at a point where we need to hire an expert or someone like a forensic electrical engineer to really push the issue. And I think once we resolve that, and it's been a problem for a while, and actually looking back at the data, I think it's been a problem since day one. But anyway, I think we need to hire someone to really push the issue with N-Grid, get it solved, and then we can go ahead and expand, you know, on the landfill as much as what's possible. The only issue is, you know, we're going to fall under the SMART program, and by the time we get all our eggs, you know, eggs in a basket, ducks in a row, who knows what the incentives are going to look like. Although for a landfill, I think there's what's called an adder. So that's my quick question. It's in our court, and I'd love to tell you that we're on the right path, but I don't see it yet.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate your answer.
I wish I had a solution for us. I do. It's frustrating. And Tanya knows I've been working on this for a while, and I think we really need to hire somebody.
Do inverters break when there's? Do inverters break when there's like pushback from the grid, the supplier, and there's just some conflict?
Yeah. So I'm not an electrical engineer, but the way they've described it to me, it's like if you, like an on-off switch on an electrical, light bulb, if you keep flicking it off and on, off and on, off and on, off and on, it's going to break. And that's what's been happening.
Hmm.
And the question is it the model? So I'm not going to mention the manufacturer. Is it the model that we got of the inverter? Or is it the power that's, so, with electricity, it's being backfed in as well. Is there something up with National Grid? So I feel like, you're watching a ping pong match, right?
Scott, would a battery provide some kind of buffer that would absorb the power going in each direction and smooth it out?
I honestly, that's one thing we haven't looked at. I don't know the answer to that. It's an interesting question. I can bring it up. From the people I've spoken with, I've never heard that as a solution. I think it's either the inverter or we got to change some sort of setting, or National Grid needs to do something on their end, which they're tough to deal with a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Scott? Okay, I'm going to, Scott, because you mentioned it, I'm just going to quickly, you're done with your slides, right?
Yeah, can I stop sharing? Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to quickly pull up. I think I'm going to quickly pull up the PowerPoint slide just to give people a visual on what Scott's talking about. So hold on, I thought I had this up. Would update. Hold on, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly pull up the slide that Scott had mentioned so people have a visual. We're not going to make a decision tonight because I think my to-do task will be to take a look at the historical numbers and look at what we'd have to believe in order for it to make sense for us to go with a fixed price. But option one, fixed price with no escalation. This is what Scott was talking about. It would be around 11 cents, and that is above, and that's why the blue line is above the orange. It's above where the solar credit price currently is under the G1 rate. So when this credit price is up, then we would be in the money, we'd make money. If it goes down, then the town would be paying more for the credit than we'd be receiving on our bill. We'd be losing money. And over time, whether or not we'd make money with a fixed price depends on the arrangement. And as I mentioned, in this case, we're not getting a credit for transmission and distribution. We're just getting a credit for the supply, which is very volatile and could be expected to go down, could be expected to go up. But it is definitely a gamble. Whereas in other situations, if this blue line were down here, maybe we would be more interested in going with the fixed price. It's not. It's pretty much like this. What Palmer has offered is basically the 12.5% guaranteed savings. And that means that when this orange line, which is the same as this orange line, goes up, then the price that we pay goes up. When it goes down, the price that we pay goes down. Palmer bears the risk that they're not able to cover all the costs or the return on capital that they would like to have, but the town is guaranteed a fixed percentage of the bill credit. And so there's less risk to the town, but there's also less potential upside. But again, because this is based on the G1 rate, that might be just the safest thing to recommend. So this committee I promised the select board that we'll come back to them with a recommendation. The select board is already leaning towards this option 2, the guaranteed savings. And I think we need to do a little bit more due diligence to report out on what the historical has been, do some calculations. Maybe something like if we had that fixed price going back in time, would we have made money or not made money? What do we think is going to happen going forward? And then this committee will make a recommendation to the town as to which option we would recommend they take. And at the end of the day, this does not need a town vote. It does not need a 30B procurement because it's not leasing or disposing of any town property. It's basically a town manager decision for a power procurement. Does that make sense? And hopefully that visual sort of puts it into perspective. All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Tanya, you don't feel like we have enough information to make a decision right now, or?
I mean, maybe we do. The fixed price is around 11 cents. The net credit is 10, what is it, Scott, 10 something?
And right now it's 10.37, but that's the summer rate, and winter rate's usually higher, but you got to look at historic numbers, or maybe, there's a number of firms out there that do all this forward pricing modeling, right? You could look at that.
You're
I
on mute,
wouldn't.
Debbie.
Personally, I wouldn't, but you could look at it.
My feeling is, we're talking, $8,000 and the upside or downside is only a couple of $1,000 difference, probably. If we were talking about something with more.
Well, we don't know
variation-
that, Debbie. That's what I think we need to explore, is what is the upside and what is the downside?
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking though, we're talking about, there's averages and that graph showed that it definitely, peaks and valleys. It's not like an incremental rise or an incremental, drop, it looked like. So I don't know. Anyway.
So that graph was just made up. It's not based on numbers. So I think, Steve, to answer your question, I'd feel more comfortable going to the actual historical numbers for the rates and looking at what we'd have to believe for things to be in the money. And I think generally, as I've already mentioned, I don't feel like there's enough headroom to know we're always going to be in the money, like with the landfill, because it's just the supply rate. But I think we need to, I'd feel comfortable looking at the numbers and just confirming and being able to take it back to the select board, because I don't want to just go to the select board and say, you always want to do this. You don't always want to do a fixed rate, right? If we put solar on the school roofs, it may be we want a fixed price because we know what we're going to be offsetting. So we've made a lot of money at the landfill with almost no risk. There is risk, but at the end of the day, it's only gone up for the most part. So I would say we have a little bit more homework to do in my mind.
I'm just wondering though, Scott, when would you need a decision by to avoid the risk of missing the incentives?
So I guess the important thing, I would love to get that letter from the town to get us into the smart queue for the 390 building. So here's the thing. We're going to develop this project. We would love to sell the bill credits to the town. We did explore with going behind the meter with Stop and Shop, which made sense. They obviously didn't respond to us, but we're going to go ahead with the projects. There's other entities out there that will buy bill credits. So we would love to do a deal with the town again. The agreement that we gave the town is very similar, has similar language to what's in the site lease and in the the PPA, but it's a lot less complicated. It's a lot more straightforward. We want to do another transaction with the town, but we're going to move forward with the project regardless. So, if we're going ahead, it's going to get built. The question for you all is, do you want the bill credits? I think it's a no-brainer in my mind. Like, you know, I wouldn't take the volatility. I would take the guaranteed rate, call it a day, and you're always going to have something in the bank, right?
A whole lot easier to explain to our fellow Cohasset citizens.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, you don't want to gamble with taxpayers' money, right? Not that
Right.
we're not talking big dollars, but like, and Tanya's spot on. At the landfill, you had a ton of headroom there. Here, not so much, because it's just basic supply. It's tight.
Yeah. So even if we made a recommendation, we still don't have the letter of intent signed, but I agree, Scott, that is the critical item right now, not a
Yeah.
vote on which pricing to go with.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so
Thank you.
I don't think we have a vote to take, so this was very helpful. Scott, any final questions for Scott or discussion points?
So I do have one question. How long is this offer open to us?
Ah, good question.
Forever,
Well, maybe
forever
not.
and better, right, Scott?
I wish I could say that. Oh, I don't think we gave you a deadline, did we? I think that shows we really want to do the deal. I think I think once we get comfortable with the EPC pricing, then we're gonna say we need to know. Because then things are really gonna gel. And we should know that in the next couple of months. I don't want to give you I don't want to drag this out though. I'd like to know now, sooner rather than later. And particularly if we get that letter and can lock in the SMART incentive, that goes a long way to, you know, really locking in these discounted rates or figuring out what the fixed price would be. Nothing set in stone until we sign the agreement. But you guys get a head start. No one else has these agreements. You got the agreements. You know, if you want to move on it, that'd be great. If, you know, if things start dragging out, you know, I'll let you know. And, you know, particularly when we know what our costs are going to be with the installer, that's when things are really going to come together.
So you need the letter of intent yesterday, 2 months
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah,
to get in the queue, to make sure
Yeah.
we can try to get block 10.
yeah,
So again, we just need to keep putting the pressure on the town to get council to review it so that Chris can sign it and give it to us to give to you or give it to you directly.
yeah. that'd be
As
great.
far as the agreement, most certainly without an extension of the 26% ITC, you need to have something in place a couple of months before the end of the year
Yeah.
to grandfather and safe harbor yourself in for the
Yeah.
26%. So I think you would need a final decision commitment from the town by no later than September, October, the latest.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, so we're gonna get into the so our EPC guy is doing interconnection, he's doing structural engineering, probably starting tomorrow. So that's gonna things are gonna start moving, and then, you know, then we're gonna have to have an answer on offtake.
Not sure if we just lost Tanya.
No, I'm here. I was just
Okay.
gonna run out of juice and prematurely end the meeting, so I had to go get my plug. I don't even know why I do these meetings without plugging in my computer, but I do. I think it's always a hope that we're gonna end early. So with that, thank you. Could everybody just give a round of applause to Scott? Thank you to Palmer
You're most
Capital
welcome.
again for all of your commitment to this town. I do know these are smaller projects than you would ever contemplate normally,
Yeah.
but it is as good as citizens to the town. And your prices have proven themselves out, and the
Yep.
town has $300,000 of thanks because of you. So
Yep.
thank you. And we hope to get more. And I think that this location offers potential other value in addition to the savings. That
Well, you're
you bumped up.
not to pat backs, but that's, you worked with us on that as well. So I'm as much responsible, and Gordon and yourself. So you can definitely, you and the rest of the AEC can take credit for that as well.
Yeah, we have a great
Pushing
committee,
things
and,
through.
and Chris has been passionate about renewable energy for years and years and years, and now he finally gets to put
Great.
his
I get
hands
to
in
learn,
and
I
start
get to
getting
learn
dirty.
something. Yeah.
I promised him, I said, you're gonna learn a ton by
you
being
will.
on the committee.
Yeah.
So, all right, very good. Well, listen, Scott, thank you so much. I think
Thank you.
we
Yeah.
only have one more item to discuss, but you don't have to stick around if you
Okay.
don't want to.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Night.
Okay, so see, Chris, they always last around 2 hours, these meetings, no matter what we try to do. So but they're always good conversations. The last item, and this was not known 8 hours in advance because I just got wind of it yesterday, and I think I sent it around to everybody, was potential comments that Mass CEC is looking for from leaders in climate action with respect to what they should be thinking about in the green communities, what they should be thinking about with respect to different programs and other things. Did everybody get a chance to review what I had sent via email?
Was that in the bulk email you sent, Tanya?
So that would be in probably my second email I sent to you, Chris, the most recent email.
Right. Okay, thanks.
So Tanya, maybe you could put up that PowerPoint just briefly. Isn't that what we were supposed to respond to? That there was a seminar and then a PowerPoint about it.
Okay, so.
I mean,
all
I think
s-
that's a lot to digest, and
Well, I don't know. Hold on. So maybe we're not on the same page. So why don't I pull up what I'm talking about? Let's see.
I'm not sure. I maybe I deleted your email. I got one with 4 attachments, but I didn't see another one. But I've been
Okay,
known
it's
to
not
delete.
an attachment. It's in the body of the email.
right,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was the PowerPoint and then the seminar.
Hold on a second.
Wondering, let's see.
It was the
Yeah,
email you sent probably today or yesterday. Brand new.
is
Yeah.
my name on it? Debbie, oh,
Yes, you are, Chris.
I may
your
be
name-
looking at the wrong email box. I have these.
This one was sent to your Gmail. It was sent
Yeah.
Wednesday, July 27th at 10:08 a.m.
Great.
So I'm going to
Um,
just pull it up. It's request for information. So let's see.
Oh, yeah, got it. Thank you. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong email account.
All right, so the request for information, does everybody see that? Green communities? And try to make it bigger. Climate leaders proposal, feedback wanted. So the town of Cohasset is one of the green communities, not the original 35, but we are one of now 286 municipalities that's a green community. And on June 30th, the Secretary of the EEA released the Clean Energy and Climate Plan for 2025 and 2030. And it's the Commonwealth's goals to realize a 2050 future where Massachusetts is net zero. And that would require the heat in homes, power in vehicles, and the electric grid to operate with minimum reliance on fossil fuels. So as a result, the DOER is going to offer additional opportunities and resources to municipalities that have been in the green communities to move forward with additional grant programs that aligns with these goals. And this is a new program tentatively called Climate Leaders. It's a voluntary program, and it would basically incentivize the towns to implement clean energy and climate-friendly policies, community engagement, and sustainable transportation programs. All right, sustainable transportation programs, I guarantee you includes electric school buses. That's right.
So Tanya, the real nut and bolt was in the PowerPoint presentation that you sent. And that really talked about the aspects of the program to respond to. I don't know, maybe you didn't look at it. It
I
is
did not.
really complicated. And it's got a lot of, different decision points, and it's got, so I don't know if you can open that PowerPoint and in that link you sent. It was probably today. But you can just get a gist of it, because there are all these things in there, like, that you would need to qualify in order to be a climate leader. And some of them were, I think, a little controversial, actually.
I am sure. So I guess the key question for tonight, now these comments are due August 5th. So I just pulled up, I'm going to share my screen again. If you click on the slides, is this what you're talking about, Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay, so climate leaders. So they're proposing a number of things, how you're designated.
But some of these are very controversial, I think.
Well, except these are the ones already required for green communities. So this designation criteria we've already met.
Right.
And
Right.
we're
No, but-
doing.
well, yeah, it's quite a presentation.
Right. So let's see, they want to align resources for municipalities with their goals. I mean, I think if nothing else, we put in a comment that says, don't put unfunded mandates onto the municipalities, right? Because if they say you have to convert your fleet of electric school buses, and the electric school buses cost 3 times the cost of a diesel bus, every town's going to be hit with additional costs. So this is what you're talking about, Debbie?
Yes,
Key
yeah.
requirements.
And they want to find out what we think of, this is just some of it, but what we think about these different things, and, whether they're too much, not enough. It's something you have to ponder for a while, I have to say.
Okay. So I guess would people, I mean, we only have until August 5th. Normally we would not be, as a committee, allowed to advocate for anything anyway. It would have to go through the town. How do people want to proceed with this? Do we want to just sit out this round? Do we want to send it to Michelle and Chris and make sure they at least know that this is happening?
So my take on it, from looking it over, and maybe I'm wrong, this is kind of a voluntary thing. And I think it's, it doesn't sound like it's, this going to be a real policy commitment kind of a thing. It's, so I definitely think we need to really look at it a little bit. So this next slide, I think, might help too.
Debbie, from the way I read the thing, it sounds like they're asking for what we're suggesting changes should be made to the Green Communities program. So
I think it's this climate leader program. I think they're talking about this sort of next iteration to this climate leader program, and what it would take to be, because so many communities now are green communities. So I think what they're trying to do is get people to move to another tier and incentivize them.
Is there some benefit for becoming a climate leader town? I wonder, are they?
Well, I just looked at it very, very quickly. So, but I think my sense, this is through DOER, not through CEC. And so I think there will be money and different things, but I think it's to incentivize people. Most people probably have met a lot of their goals in the green communities. It's to move everybody along. And so anyway, that's my take on it.
So here, the answer is yes, Steve. So here are grant funding opportunities they're contemplating, potential grant funding opportunities. So just like green communities, you can get grant funding to do things associated with the Green Communities Program. The Climate Leaders Program would have funding, but only for climate leaders who meet the criteria.
Right.
And so the grant funding could be solar paired with batteries or EV charging stations, money to develop and implement climate action plans, Pat Gooding, sustainability plans, municipal building electrification, so money for heat pumps, decarbonization, seed funds for municipal clean energy climate coordinator. So right now we're paying for 1/3 of Hingham's climate sustainability director. They could give us seed funding for paying for that. And then vehicle grant bonuses so that we could get grants for, more electric vehicles. Our lease, the 3 electric vehicles that the town is going to own that we've been leasing, those were leases that were completely free because they were funded by the state.
See, on the left column is the requirements that they're thinking about. This is what they're asking.
Right, and
Whether you
that's
think
here,
those are
right?
the right things to ask. For example, you go in anytime you replace a vehicle that you start, at the electric and eliminate that you can't do it is one example. So
All right, I saw
basically,
the,
this
I
is
saw the last,
about how to set this climate leader program up. What's acceptable to green communities to have this? That's how I took it.
yeah, I see the last one was to adopt the extended stretch code.
Right. So those are some requirements that they
Which
want
is
you
kind
to
of a
do.
heavy lift for a lot of towns, I think.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. I guess you want you would like to see the requirements as tough as they could be, yet still be acceptable for the town, because that would bring in the most money, grant money, presumably. On the other hand, you don't want to exceed our reach. Like if the town would not accept the extended stretch code, I guess we'd rather not be in there, because then, Cohasset would be out of the running for these additional grants. But if the town would accept that, then presumably the grant monies would be more lucrative and we could be eligible for them. So it's a matter of, I think, trying to decide what our town will accept. If we're going to make comments to the DOER about this, then we should align our comments with what we think Cohasset would accept. How stringent, how tough requirements would Cohasset accept? I don't know.
I mean, there is something in there, and maybe it is already, but for example, there's something in there about mandatory, that you allow, literally no NIMBY, like if no automatic citing of any kind of renewable product manufacturing or something in your town. I mean, there's some language in there that I think is kind of, we'd have to really think about. And maybe we tell them that language is just, I don't know, not acceptable to our town. I mean, that's what they're looking for.
I'm concerned that they're giving us so little time to review this and think about it when it's such a complicated, important thing.
Well, they had issued this and I didn't see it. They had issued this a couple weeks ago.
So
So I
Tanya,
just
you
saw it
go to the
yesterday.
last page and it talks about what the purpose is. Okay. Okay. So this is the feedback, what they want. Are the requirements too hard, too easy, or just right? What should be tweaked? This is what they're asking, help us form this climate leader program.
Right. So I think, we're now at 9:36. This is due August 5th. I don't know if this committee is in a position, even if we had all the time in the world, to provide these comments, because it requires a much bigger process. I think at a minimum, we need to make Chris and Michelle aware of this so that perhaps they're aware of other towns that are providing comments. They can provide comments and leave it at that.
Yeah, I think too, Tom, we should maybe see if Hingham's providing comments, because perhaps there's a way to, get Chris in the loop and Michelle in the loop on that, whatever their feedback is. I think there's a lot of thought that has to be put into this. They're talking about a roadmap. You don't just come up with a roadmap, in a couple conversations, but I agree with everything that's been said so far.
But I'm looking for, what do we as a committee do?
Because the timeline's so short, I don't really think we can do anything with this. How can we come up with recommendations for the town to review in in just a week or two? It's just unrealistic.
But even if we could, is that the role of this committee?
Well, there'd be no other body in town that would do it.
But I think we should revisit our mission and see if this would be something that we should be doing. And if it's not in our mission and we're not authorized to do it, we would need to discuss as a committee whether going forward, this is something we want to be able to do.
I don't see that it's not within our mission. I think our mission is to go back to the town and, to the select board and say, this is what's being looked for. We've looked at this. This is our input to it. What do you think about it?
My take on this is there's a lot of other boards that would be involved,
Yeah.
planning. There's talking about things like stretch code. You're talking about things like citing. You can't really. You might have to agree to cite whatever comes along, almost like a 40B, is how I took it. So I think that this is a dialogue that needs to be with a broad range of committees and things to talk about this. But it really is just helping them formulate this, and who knows what's going to come out of it.
Well, this is really good feedback for somebody. I mean, it sounds like it's really would be tough for towns to sort this out. And maybe that's the simple message Chris and Michelle ought to deliver. This is way complicated. Too much of a lift for a town like us.
Actually, that's a great point, Chris. Just, we can send this to Chris and Michelle and say, we've looked at this, and given the number of committees that are involved, given the lack of clarity on what the potential upside would be, it's difficult for a town such as ours to be able to provide a coordinated set of comments at this time.
I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's interesting what they're proposing. And I agree with you, Debbie, that what they've realized is there are so many green communities now that they're trying to create yet another, like a stretch code, if you would, for certain communities called climate leaders. And, I think one of the other issues is the social justice. And maybe our second is, if we fully support the concept of environmental justice and social justice, but recognize that some towns are able to move forward on things either because of circumstance or location, or the people who live in town. And so it would be beneficial to everybody to have certain towns be able to move forward and have lessons learned for the benefit of everybody else. right? Because,
I think that the towns that are positioned with climate action plans and sustainability directors are able to turn around and look at these things. We don't have that.
I think that's absolutely the case. Where you've, yes, because a lot of these, the sustainability is, there are a lot of people that are plugged in different boards and everything. And so they have a structure already.
Mhm. Okay, all right, well, that's helpful. So I will forward this with the PowerPoint slide presentation attached as a PDF to Michelle and Chris and have some very brief comments that basically says it's hard for a town like us to provide coordinated comments. It crosses multiple committees. We do not yet have a sustainability director. And if it's difficult for our town, who has played a leadership role in multiple ways, to provide a coordinated set, there are probably others as well who should have a bigger opportunity to provide feedback or something. I don't know. Does that sound right?
That was very eloquent.
For somebody.
You see, I'm blushing now, but I don't know if that was sarcastic.
No, I thought it sounded great. I thought it sounded perfect.
Okay, all right. Well, look, I think, Chris, you definitely pulled out the summary of our conversation. And I think that that is a good message to send to them. I mean, frankly, there'd never be enough time for us to go through the process of trying to get coordinated comments, because it's just municipalities are not in a position to provide that type of feedback. Most, maybe some are, maybe the ones with the sustainability director that has a unilateral ability to comment on policy can do this. But most certainly not in our town. So, okay, so, well, this is good feedback. I will send that along. All right, anything else that was not known more than 48 hours in advance? All right, hopefully going forward, once we have a director of sustainability, they would bring things like this to our attention as soon as they came out, instead of some random over the transom stuff that sometimes I receive. All right. Thank you, Chris, and welcome to the committee. It's great
Those
to
have been
have
fun.
you.
I really enjoyed talking with you guys for the last 2.25 hours. Yeah,
It's
learning a lot.
2.25 hours. Oh my God. This is supposed to be a short meeting.
This was supposed to be a short meeting. They're never short. So
It was
plan on
only 2 agenda items.
I know.
Usually we have about 15.
And we didn't even get a vote on any of them, but that sometimes we're much faster than that, Chris, and you have to sort of buckle up, and the time is taken up by our upfront speaker and then all of our report outs. But this has been helpful, I think, in moving the ball forward. This is the process, and we do it very, very well. So we will do our research. We have specific things to look into, and during our September meeting, we're skipping August, Chris, just because of the summer, but we are going to come back the second Thursday of the month. And at that meeting, we'll report out on what we've discussed collecting today, and have be prepared to do votes on recommendations for how to proceed with third-party site at Stop and Shop, and with recommendations on how to proceed with the EV charging. We also, at that meeting, will need to vote on leadership. If there's appetite for moving things around, we need to vote on that just to make it official. And the other thing that we need to do is decide if we want to keep to the second Thursdays of the month, or if we want to go to the third Thursdays of the month, or if there's some other day that we want to take. But right now, Thursdays have been working with us, but I think we need to discuss it every year just as part of organizational hygiene. So there'll be a lot to talk about in September. Everybody rest up. Chris, take the month off, but let's talk offline.
Great,
And we
thank you.
can go through stuff, and if you could coordinate with Michelle on your insights with respect to the EV charging and how to make sure it's a comprehensive analysis, that would
Great.
be helpful too.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thanks.
so anything else from anybody? Then
Move
I
to
would
adjourn.
entertain a motion to adjourn from Steve. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, Pat, second. No discussion is required for motion to adjourn. So why don't we all raise our hands or say our names? Tanya Bodell, aye. All right.
aye.
This
Aye.
meeting is adjourned.
Hi,
Bye.
Debbie
Thank you,
Cook, aye.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.